Hello and welcome to Windsor. The Royal Rota podcast comes to you today from Windsor. Now, why are we in Windsor? Well, the Queen's here. She's returned to Windsor, and the Queen's had a rather, how do we put this delicately, a busy constitutional time over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, it's been an extraordinary time in British politics.
Yes, British politics has been extraordinary, but why would the Queen care about any of that? Well, the Queen basically, one of her constitutional duties is, of course, is to ensure that the country has a functioning government. And if you've been following any news from the UK over the past 24 hours or so, there were plenty of people who would be questioning whether or not the government is currently functioning. So we were here just in case Boris Johnson, the outgoing Prime Minister, we should now refer to him as, decided to turn up to see the Queen, either to ask for a dissolution of Parliament or to call an election or to say, sorry, ma'am, I'm off. But actually, he did that by a phone call this week. And the Queen still has a Prime Minister. She still has a government, for now at least. And Boris Johnson remains in post until a new Prime Minister comes to see the Queen and seek her permission to form a government in due course.
So he's actually had two phone calls with the Queen in quite quick succession. The first being his regular weekly audience with the Queen. That happens.
Even that must have been quite an interesting chat.
That happens usually on a Wednesday. We know it happened yesterday evening over the phone. That's how it happens. Tends to happen these days. It's we never know what happens in those meetings. It's private between her Prime Minister and the Queen. But that was held yesterday. But then this morning, we understand that they held another phone call.
Basically, phoning up Her Majesty to say, hello, Majesty, it's your Prime Minister on the phone here. I'm about to resign, which he did. But the way the UK system works is that he resigns as party leader, but remains Prime Minister until such a time as the party can choose a new leader, which, of course, it's now in the process of doing. We don't know who that will be yet. We might not know for many weeks. But the Queen's job, her constitutional role at times like this, is to ensure that the country has a functioning government.
And when that new Prime Minister is chosen, that will be the Queen's 15th Prime Minister. Boris is her 14th. And at that point, Boris will come to see the Queen and formally resign. And the new incoming Prime Minister will also come to see her.
Can you name all 14 Prime Ministers?
Almost certainly not, but I bet you can.
We go backwards. We get Boris Johnson, Theresa May, David Cameron, Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, John Major, Margaret Thatcher, James Callaghan, Harold Wilson. Well, no, it was quite Harold Wilson, but then Edward Heath, and then Harold Wilson again.
Yeah.
And then, then we get into sort of Harold Macmillan, Anthony Eden, Winston Churchill, and...
That's very good. The only one you've missed is Sir Alec Douglas Home. Hume.
Sir Alec Douglas Hume. Yes.
Very good.
There we are.
Well done.
So I got 13 out of 14, so that's not terrible. She's actually, we could drone on, but the point is, the Queen's role at a time like this, she actually, even though she has no political power, she does retain the power to appoint a Prime Minister, which is one significant role that she still has. So she would have been taking a very close eye on what was happening in Westminster for these last few days. As minister after minister after minister, was it 51 or 52 we got to, or maybe it's slightly more than that?
I mean, they were racking up so quickly, you could barely do anything without another one going.
And all the while Boris Johnson said, until Thursday morning, that is, that he would remain in post. Well, now we know it's changed. So anyway, that's why we're in Windsor. The Queen's here. She's back in Windsor. She'd actually popped into Wood Farm in Sandringham on her way home from Holyrood Week last week, where she was pretty active, I thought.
Yep, she was seen, at Holyrood Week, she was very active. As we know, the Queen's appearance to engagements now tends not to be confirmed either until late in the day or on the day itself. And it's always sort of, confirmation coming very late. And that's because we know she's had these episodic mobility issues, but obviously feeling good up in Scotland. She did a fair amount. I think we spoke about that in last week's podcast.
Yes.
And then she left Scotland and went for a private weekend at Sandringham, where she was spotted out and about going to see her horses, one of her big passions.
And what else would you do in Sandringham if you're having a little break than see your horses? So anyway, she's now back in Windsor. The flag is flying. We've had lots of people walk past us today saying, "What are you doing here?" And we're going, well, kind of, she's the Queen and kind of Prime Minister. But yes, but
we do anticipate she normally goes back to Scotland to spend the summer, to head to Balmoral, and she tends to go to Craiggowan on the estate while the castle remains open to members of the public, and then she moves into the main castle for the duration of the summer. Members of the royal family tend to go up and visit her, and it's one of the places that she loves the most.
I'm talking of Windsor. Someone was playing polo not far from here.
They were
just a day or two ago.
Prince William was playing polo yesterday, which is Wednesday. We record on a Thursday. And
raising lots of money for charity. And lots of the pictures that I saw, though I haven't had a chance actually to look at them in detail. Have we even put it up on our Instagram page yet? I'm not sure we have. Was Wales kisses Kate, wasn't it?
A winning kiss. His polo team were victorious, and the polo match was a charity match raising funds for 10 charities supported by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and they made £1 million for the couple's charities, which is...
It's not a terrible afternoon fundraising, is it? I mean, that's the equivalent of getting a bag full of cash from a Qatari prime minister, isn't it? Although you might say a little bit more above board.
Now, it wasn't just...
Not that it was below board, actually, I should correct, because the Charity Commission still said it's totally fine to get cash in a bag or any device, suitcase, bag, box,
I have no idea how you've gone from polo to...
Well, no, just the fact that they raised £1 million in an afternoon. And clearly we also know that Prince Charles got €3 million in an afternoon in a bag. So it just shows it's quite, when you've got the right connections, it's quite easy to raise lots of money.
Yeah, £1 million. That's
£1 million
impressive for an afternoon.
Yes.
It wasn't just the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge there. They were joined by a furry friend.
The dog?
Their dog, Orla.
Yeah. How do you know the dog's name? Yeah. The Black Labrador thing.
The Black Cocker Spaniel.
Black Cocker Spaniel. Kind of a Labrador.
Kinda.
Okay. So and children?
No children.
Just a dog.
No children. Just the dog.
It was school, isn't it? Presumably, I don't think schools have broken up yet, have they? Maybe private schools have, I don't know. But maybe William and Kate School is broke. What are they called? Not William and Kate School. William and Kate are definitely not a school. So the other story that we've been trying to keep ahead of today was this one in the High Court. If you've been following royal correspondence closely on Thursday, you will know that Prince Harry is back in court. What a surprise. Not that Prince Harry and Meghan go to court very often, he says, with a slight tongue in his cheek, but
their legal team do.
Yes, lawyers employed by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are not short of work. Would that be a very accurate way of describing things?
Fair. So this one, Harry is bringing legal action over a decision not to allow him to pay for police protection for himself and his family while he's in the UK, and he wants to bring his children to visit from the US, but he says his family are unable to return home because it is too dangerous. That's what a representative for them has previously said.
Without looking at your laptop, which you are, look away, are you able to tell me what RAVIC stands for?
I am able to tell you what RAVIC
She's looking at her laptop.
For the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures.
But that doesn't spell RAVIC, that spells ECPRP or something. Executive Committee, EC, for the Protection of Royal and Public Figures. So where did they get RAVIC from? RAVC. Anyway, RAVIC is the committee which decides whether or not you get protection when you're in the UK. So in other words, normally, working member of the royal family, you get protection. The problem that Harry had was he decided not to be a working member of the royal family, so they reassessed his security and decided that he didn't qualify anymore, or at least he would get it on a case-by-case basis. Prince Harry is asking the High Court for a judicial review. He's asking them to send this for a judicial review of the Home Office decision not to give him security on the basis that his family will feel unsafe here. In fact, he's previously said to the court that his family were unable to return to his home country because it is too dangerous. So this all centres around the facts. A couple of things here. Is it one, he was willing to pay for it, and the Home Office says, actually, cash ain't important. We give security to whoever wants it, irrespective of who's paying. In fact, you can't actually pay, I think was their argument, wasn't it? You can't pay for security. And the other was that he found out in the course of, or at least they raised in court, that the royal household was involved in the decision. And Harry's lawyer said that there were significant tensions between Harry and the Queen's private secretary, Sir Edward Young, at the time the decision was made.
Yeah, so representatives for the Duke told the court he didn't know at that stage that the royal household was involved at all. He was told it was an independent decision. They also said there were significant tensions between Harry and the Queen's private secretary, Sir Edward Young, at the time.
So basically, Harry's saying, this decision was taken. I didn't know that the royal family were involved in the decision that was taken. And had they not been involved, or had I been aware of that and been able to make some representations to the aforementioned Ravek, then they might have come to a different decision. The Home Office basically said, that's not true. We would have come to the same decision, irrespective of whether Harry or not made representations. It is a bit odd they didn't consult him in some respects, isn't it? I kind of would have thought they would have at least said to him, oh, we're making this decision. Have you got any representations you want to make? And they did it, according to Harry, without consulting him.
You think Ravek?
Yeah, that was Harry's claim, isn't it? So Harry's claim is that Ravek took this decision to remove his security and therefore make his family, quotes unquote, unsafe in the UK. And he didn't get a say in it at all, which is, quite interesting. And actually, I was just looking on social media, and as ever, whenever you post about Harry and Meghan, there's a lot of accusations flies around, particularly on Twitter. But one of them was, well, hold on a minute. Prince Andrew still has his security. Harry's has been taken away from him, and you might argue that the people who are making that point have a bit of a case.
We should say that lawyers representing the Home Office, just to give both sides of the argument, said in their arguments that any tensions between Harry and the royal household are irrelevant to his change in status. They said that in his skeleton argument, the claimant now refers to objections he might have made to any role being played by officials of the royal household in Ravek's decision-making, apparently because of personal tensions he felt with them. But there is no bias challenge, and any such tensions are irrelevant to the undisputed fact of the claimant's change in status, which led to the decision of Ravek.
So in other words, when he says the client's change in status, he basically means going from royal to non-royal. Yes?
Yes, that's how I read that.
Right, so you went from royal to non-royal, and whether or not you had any tensions with the palace, well, we would have come to the same decision. So the judge hearing this case, Mr. Justice Swift, has gone off to make a decision and will release his decision in writing at a later date, whenever that might be.
Yeah, so we have to wait and see.
Right, but it's basically his decision is whether or not to grant permission for a full hearing.
Yes.
It's not about overturning it. It's about whether it should go to a judicial review.
Yes.
There we are. So that's the latest on Harry's legal case against the Home Office. Of course, the Home Secretary still remains Priti Patel, at least it was last time we looked. So there hasn't been any changes. And she wasn't one of those who resigned en masse from the government in the last 24 hours. So she remains the Prime Minister. Charles and Camilla have been having a bit of a week in Wales. Isn't it sort of technically called Wales Week?
It's Wales Week. Yeah, who would have guessed?
Which is the Welsh equivalent of Holyrood Week.
Scotland Week, yeah.
Well, it's actually Holyrood Week.
Holyrood Week, yes.
Wales should have a different name then, shouldn't it? Like if you've got Holyrood Week for Scotland, this should be called something else, Cardiff Week or...
Well, no, because they get around, don't they?
But then why call it Holyrood Week? Because that's only one little part of Edinburgh. So, do you know what? True. I think we should have a campaign to rebrand Holyrood Week, all of Scotland Week. Okay. Didn't William and Kate go to Scotland? We went up with Scotland last year. That's when William and Kate went to the place where they went to university, St Andrews. St Andrews. Was that last year or the year before? I forget now. Because it was, and they went sort of kite surfing or windsurfing.
Neela Snedden. Saw little Neela Snedden.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes, actually, the Sneddons posted a picture of them outside the Palace of Holyrood House, not allowed in this year. I mean, last year they were inside the gate, very much in the room in her pink. Mila was in her pink dress, and we brought you the news of the very good news from Mila that she's managed to get to the end of her cancer treatment. Yeah, they posted a picture of themselves outside saying, "We can't get in this year."
There was also a new photograph this week, talking of Cambridges and Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall. Kate has photographed Camilla.
Yes. So Camilla's turned 75. When is she 75? June or July? We're going to Google her birthday. It's coming up. And she is guest editing Country Life magazine. Now, when you guest edit Country Life magazine and you remember the royal family, you kind of get a front page picture. And Camilla, being guest editor, got to choose who the photographer was going to be.
Yeah, we know photography is a big passion for the Duchess of Cambridge. She's taken some brilliant photographs of the children over recent years. You know, we always tend to get one for their birthdays. And the Duchess of Cornwall asked her to take some portraits of her at her Wiltshire home, Ray Mill, for Country Life. And one of those appears on the front cover. And I thought it was really lovely, relaxed photograph of her.
We mean is not a bad picture.
I thought it was a lovely picture.
Yeah. So you're a fan of Kate's photography.
There we are. We're looking at it now. And her birthday is the 17th of July, and she'll be 75 this year.
Yes. Country Life magazine. Whenever it says here, it goes on sale on the 13th of July. So if you're a fan of Country Life, the edition this month, as you will see from, we put this on our Instagram page, didn't we? Country Life HRH, the Duchess of Cornwall guest editor. Do we know what she's got content-wise inside? She's sitting there with a basket of flowers.
Well, it's Country Life.
Freshly cut from the garden, presumably. Good job they didn't come around to my garden and try and get some flowers. They wouldn't have had many to choose from. And there was also a very good picture, wasn't there, of Kate taking the picture. So someone took a picture of Kate taking a picture of her. What's the relationship between Kate and Camilla? Stepmother-in-law?
Yes.
Yes. Not stepmum, but stepmum-in-law. In other words, my husband's stepmother. And we don't know what's in the magazine. So you'd have to buy the magazine to find out.
We do know that she writes in, that the Duchess of Cornwall writes in the leader column, though. There are many reasons why I was delighted to be asked to guest edit this week's Country Life. The most selfish thing being that celebrating the magazine's 125th anniversary makes me, at 75, feel positively young. I've cherished this opportunity to highlight some of the people, communities and charities whom I've had the privilege to encounter and who do such a great deal for our life in the countryside, for life in our countryside, too often unseen and unsung.
So go and buy a copy of Country Life if you want to read Camilla's guest editorship. And
next week on ITV, actually, there's going to be a special programme, isn't there, about the Duchess of Cornwall?
There is. The programme will be on Wednesday, an hour-long documentary about Camilla being 75. Don't they call her sort of Country Camilla?
Camilla's Country Life, and it follows the Duchess of Cornwall in her role as guest editor of the magazine.
To be fair, we go on a fair number of royal engagements. Normally you spot cameras when someone's making a documentary. I didn't see any cameras hanging around Camilla in recent months.
I'm trying to think when.
Normally you go on, you maybe on tour, you see this extra camera crew, and you think, oh, where they're from, but I haven't actually seen it yet. So
maybe they've got lots of exclusive.
Well,
content.
we haven't been allowed to see what is yet. The last we heard is they were still editing the thing, which rather suggests if they're still editing it kind of this late in the day, it rather suggests it was filmed rather recently. So there's still a work in progress. Camilla's Country Life on ITV next week.
Yeah,
at 7:30.
Other things this week: the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have been enjoying some tennis at Wimbledon.
Of course, because Kate is kind of Wimbledon patron.
Kate is patron of the All England Club. So we saw her at Wimbledon this week, and she was cheering on Britain's #1 Cam Norrie, and they saw him get through the quarterfinals, qualifying for the semi-finals, which he'll play tomorrow.
Think Kate's going to turn up for the semi-finals tomorrow?
I think we usually see her at the weekend over the finals because she does the presentation of the trophies.
So. Did she take that over from the Duke of Kent or
yeah.
something? So
yeah.
She came along and barged him out of the way. But talking of fairly old Duke and Duchesses, whose golden wedding anniversary is it this week?
The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester.
Breaking news, and we are promised that there's going to be a new photograph of them. Who are the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester?
Queen's cousin.
That's your answer to anyone in the royal family.
It's actually true.
Who's Princess Alexandra? Queen's cousin. Who's the Duke of Kent? Queen's cousin. Who's the Prince Michael of Kent? Queen's cousin.
It's true. The Duke of Gloucester is the Queen's cousin.
Oh, what's his first name? Richard. Got that before you. So old Rich and his wife, the Duchess, Prince Richard, Duke of Gloucester. There we are. So his father, oh God, was it? I can't remember. It was his father, Prince Henry, one of George VI's younger brothers.
Yeah.
You impressed?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Good.
So he is a cousin to the Queen.
Correct.
That is actually fact.
That is true.
You mock me, but that is fact.
A cousin to the Queen. Yes, indeed. Prince William and Kate met the New Zealand Prime Minister on last Saturday, and there is some speculation, although not officially announced. Now, I heard this from very secret sources, that William's agreed to go on a tour to New Zealand. But no one's said it, announced it, or prepared to say it. This is just rumour, dear listener. But they met Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, who was having a series of visits in the UK, including with our Prime Minister. A lot of pointless meeting that was. Now he's no longer there, or not going to be there very soon. But yes, there could be. I think a tour to New Zealand in the offing. I
think it's a fair bet that there will be a visit, in the not too distant future. By that I mean within the next year or so.
Yeah. The question is it
Australia
going to be a
and New Zealand?
tour
they are
this autumn? Is it going to be part of the autumn tour, or are they going to leave it till next spring?
I think probably next year.
Right.
But New Zealand, Australia, their realms. We know members of the royal family. Members of the royal family visit, the realms regularly, and Australia and New Zealand haven't had visits.
Way away.
For Princess Anne did go to Australia earlier this year, but
didn't William go to New Zealand after the shootings in Christchurch?
Yes.
Or did he go after or was it after an earthquake? He went, didn't he, fairly
after
recently, but he went on his own for literally for 2 days, which is, so most people agree it's a long way to go for a couple of days.
Which means that the last significant royal tour to Australia and New Zealand, would that have been
Harry and
Meghan,
when they did their Fiji, Tonga, Australia, New Zealand tour? So that was the last, apart from, of course, Princess Anne's.
Princess Anne went this year for a few days.
Yeah. So, hello, the other side of the world. I do hope we will come and see you very soon, particularly, perhaps in under 12 months, because I think we would, we'd like it. We thoroughly enjoyed New Zealand. Beautiful, beautiful country. Thoroughly enjoyed Australia as well, to be fair.
Brilliant.
So let's get one of those in the bag. Obviously, William and Kate, it depends. Now Prince Charles has said, look, if you don't want to be a realm and you want to be a republic, that's fine by me, off you go. Australia is a very interesting case in point, as we discussed last week, having Anthony Albanese in charge, who is a pro-Republican Prime Minister. Actually, Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, had previously spoken of her desire, or at least to become a republic. She's been very, very quiet about it ever since she came into office. Nevertheless, I suppose, who knows, by the time William and Kate go there, will they still be realms?
Oh, I would imagine so.
I suppose they've got to have a few referendums and things. A referenda? Is that the plural of referendum? Referenda. They've got to have a few of those beforehand. Or by that time, Jamaica and Antigua and lots of other countries might have decided that they no longer want to be realms. But they've got the green light now from Prince Charles, as we discussed last week at the Commonwealth Heads of Government Summit. You can basically go and do what you like, which is kind of always the case. He's just articulated it.
Articulated it again recently.
Yes.
But yes, I think we have got through the full list of
the events of this week. Have been mostly political. I think it's
mostly political. In news in the UK has been very dominated by politics.
Yes, I'm just looking at a picture on our website of the Queen on the phone, which I presume somebody found to describe her on on the phone to the Prime Minister. It's a very old-fashioned looking phone she's got there. It's like the kind of phone that I would use in the 1970s. I wonder, I mean, the picture can't be that old, but anyway, the Queen said one of those, or looks like one of those dial phones. You remember those? Before your time, when you literally put your finger in and turn it all the way around and back again. If you remember that. Right, okay, we have explained why we're in Windsor, and who knows where we'll be next week. Do you know where we'll be next week?
I don't know where. No, I don't know where we'll be this time next week, actually.
The Queen's doing well. They're hoping the Queen will do something this week, aren't they? They're hoping that the Queen
is going to present the George Cross to representatives from the NHS, and
obviously well deserved. And hopefully that could be here in Windsor, actually. But at the moment, it's the Prince of Wales who's guaranteed to do it, and the Queen will go if she is so able.
Yeah, as we said at the start of the podcast, she hopes to attend the presentation, but a final decision will be taken on the day, like so much of what she does at the moment.
Who do we have to say hello to? Carol?
Hello, Carol.
Carol. Thanks for listening, Carol. Carol came up to us earlier when we were standing outside the Henry VIII gate of Windsor Castle, and says that she listens every week. She might stop listening at some point if we know we've mentioned her name and embarrassed her. But hello to Carol, and thank you for listening. And we will chat to you next week.
See you next week.